over the weekend, the New York Times wrote a story because they got leaked some information on memos that James Comey, who used to be inside the Bush Justice Department, had sent to Alberto Gonzales, among others. Now, Jim Comey is the guy who told us the story about how John Ashcroft was in the hospital, and Alberto Gonzales and Andy Card went down there to try to intimidate him into signing illegal programs, including the warrantless wiretapping programs. So, and how John Ashcroft resisted because Jim Comey said it's illegal, don't do it. So, in a lot of ways, Jim Comey was a hero within the Bush Justice Department. Now, he's a very, very conservative guy. Don't get too excited about backing Jim Comey. Now, there's a story floated out there that perhaps the Obama White House might consider him for a Supreme Court seat. Oh, don't be nuts. Okay, this guy is still one of the most conservative guys in the country. But to his great credit, he's an American, and he cares about the law, and he's a good lawyer, and he did not resist them on all of the actions that they were taking, not by a long shot. But he resisted them on some very important critical parts, and these emails tell us, well, specifically on the torture issue, what happened. So Jim Comey tells Alberto Gonzales in the emails, hey, you got to get a hold of yourself here. Now, you think you're still representing the president, because he came over, remember, and these emails are in 2005, after Gonzales has come over from being White House counsel to now being Attorney General. He says, you have to realize you're representing the people of America, not the president. And you can't just do his bidding. You can't do everything he says. You have to really decide whether these things are legal or not legal. And he says, look, some of these interrogation tactics are, quote, simply awful. And he asked him, did you see those tapes of the interrogations? If that stuff ever gets out, there's going to be hell to pay. Now, what he didn't know was, of course, a little later, the CIA would destroy those tapes, the specific tapes that Comey's referring to. Man, what must have been on those tapes? So now that got destroyed, but it didn't matter because Comey said overall it doesn't matter. At some point, everybody's going to find out what we've done here, and it's illegal. And I'm frankly worried about criminal prosecutions. So he's actually trying to give Gonzales a little bit of a friendly helping hand there, saying, hey, look, dude, we can get prosecuted for this stuff. It's clearly illegal. Don't do it. Here's a quick part of one of the emails. He says, in stark terms, I explained to him what this would look like someday and what it would mean for the president and the government. So he's trying to protect the president, too. He's like, this is illegal. He's going to get in trouble. Don't do it. He continues, I sketched out the summation that could be made to demonstrate that some of this stuff was simply awful. I told him it would all come out someday and be presented in the ways that I was presenting it. So he tells Gonzales this, and they have three memos that they're discussing. The first memo is as to whether they should authorize them or not. That brutal, and this has already been written because of pressure from Cheney. And Gonzales says in the emails, look, man, I'm getting all the pressure in the world from Cheney. They say that they need this right away. And so what am I going to do? If Cheney says it, of course, Gonzales is going to be a good butt boy and do it, right? And he did. So these are the memos that were written and then had to be authorized. First memo was brutal interrogation techniques, including waterboarding, did not individually violate the federal criminal prohibition against torture. Second memo said that even if you combined all of these techniques, they still did not violate the law against torture. Okay? And the third memo, dated May 25th, said that they concluded that the techniques did not even violate the United Nations Convention Against Torture's prohibition of, quote, cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. Now, in a little bit, we're going to show you a video from ABC News of a guy who actually suffered some of this treatment. One of the things that they did to him was they had him run behind one of the military guys, U.S. military guy, until he was absolutely exhausted and couldn't keep up anymore. And when he couldn't keep up and he fell down, they would drag his body until it was bloodied, bruised, and then they'd keep dragging it along the ground. Now, the guy didn't die, right? But is that cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment? To say, of course, is an understatement. That is obviously, at the very minimum, cruel, inhumane, and degrading. Let alone all the other things they did. They literally quartered him. I mean, they would shackle him to the ground by his feet and draw him up by his arms, and they'd stretch out his body. That's the Grand Inquisition kind of stuff that the Spanish used to do back, 500 years ago? This is absolute madness. And they say, no, don't worry. These three memos say They were not illegal, none of it, not even close. Now, Comey looks at these, and to his discredit, on the first memo, which said that these brutal interrogation tactics by themselves, he says, yes, okay, fine, I'll grant you that they weren't illegal by themselves. Now, this is why we find out the information, because there's about to be a devastating report out about how illegal these activities were. So the guys on Cheney's side leak it to the New York Times, and they say, oh, see, even Comey, who you trust, authorized the first memo, ha-ha! And the New York Times dutifully writes that down as if they're working as the press agents for Cheney and his side. Now, Comey should have never agreed to the first memo, and it goes to show you, by the way, hey, you know what? If you pressure people enough, they will give you a little bit, even if they don't agree with you. And that little bit was too much. But Comey clearly says the second memo is illegal. We have combined these, and when we do combine these tactics, it is torture under U.S. law and, of course, under the United Nations prohibitions against torture as well. So these emails are really interesting because here's the main point of this. They show that this stuff was not, hey, the Justice Department told us it was legal. We didn't know. Okay, what can we do? No, there was pressure constantly from the White House and specifically from Dick Cheney's office. Make sure you give me legal authorization to do what I already want to do and have already done, which is to torture these people. And just like the Iraq intelligence from the CIA, and Comey specifically warns about it in the emails. He says one day they will turn around and say, oh, what do you mean? We had nothing to do with it. We asked the CIA for information on Iraq. That's the intelligence they gave us. We asked the Justice Department for legal memos, and they told us it was legal. He says they'll blame it on you. And it turns out Jim Comey was 100% right. That's exactly what Dick Cheney did. When the things hit the fan, he turned around and said, oh, Iraq intelligence, it wasn't me who pressured it. The CIA gave me bad intelligence. Oh, on the torture memos? Oh, I didn't do any pressure. The Justice Department gave me those memos and told me it was legal. They should have listened to Comey, and they didn't. And they should be in legal trouble, exactly as Comey said. Now, will they? That's a different question.